Here's my review of The Boys Season 4. This season was good, but to me, personally, I liked it, but I think that this season, and this show as a whole, is a show that I've liked, but I never really loved like so many people other people do. I like why people love the show, and like I said, I like it, but I think that the season kind of just encapsulates, at least for me, why I really like it, but I just don't love it. And it kind of feels like I feel like a lot of people have also said this, how this season as a whole, I mean the show as a whole, but this season in particular, just feels like it's going for more shock value rather than storytelling. Even though the story is still good here, but it's just this season just doesn't feel as fleshed out, and it just kind of feels like all build up for season 5. Like the political satire is still obviously there, but I'm not really going to get into that at all. I'm just here to talk about the show. But and it's fun, but it's like it's only so much you can kind of keep seeing it for. It's just like, okay, yeah, we get it. And there's a lot of storylines in this season that just feel so weird. Like there's a storyline where Frenchie's actually basically cheating on Kamiko but with a man, but then it just like they completely just drop it at the end and they just don't move forward even though he literally killed this guy's family. So it just feels like, why are we even doing this? And then they just get back together at the end, which I like because I love this couple and they're great characters. But it just felt like, what was even the point of that? It kind of just felt like you just wanted to do something different just because you can. And then even though you did it, there's really no like consequences, nothing really changed, and it kind of just went back to status quo. So, and that's what I feel like with a lot of this whole season personally. Like I liked it, yeah, but it just feels like it just feels kind of filler for season 5 because we know season 5 is going to be the last season of the show. But that's just kind of how I felt. And you do get the over the top violence, and this is probably the most I'm going to be willing to show on this platform. But with Victoria Newman's daughter, which is very, very cool. And there's a lot of that. I have heard people say that this is like the goriest season. I don't really feel like that at all, but that's just me. It kind of just felt like just typical for this show. And it wasn't even, I'd say it's even a little bit less, but that was just me, I guess. And the performances, I mean, are on point. I mean, Anthony Starr, this episode is probably the best episode when he goes back to like the lab he was created in. And it is just very interesting. It makes you rethink the character because it's like, yeah, this is a terrible person, but you see how he grew up, how he was raised, how they literally experimented on him to give him these superpowers, and then they just want to see how much he could take, or they burn him alive. And now he said, oh, it didn't kill me, but it still really hurt. I mean, Anthony Starr's Antony, I think is how it's actually pronounced, not Anthony, but his performance is fantastic. It's so good. And I know people, like, once he did this laugh, people were like, oh, let's cast him as the Joker. Guys, just because someone can do a really good laugh, I mean, I'm sure he would do great, but, like, no. That's just me, personally. I don't see it. But this episode was probably the best on the show. And then there's kind of Butcher's subplot, where we have Joe Kessler, who, I'm just going to reveal the twist right now. I mean, it's obvious I'm spoiling this whole show anyways. Who is a hallucination, but they treat it like it's not actually revealed to be a hallucination until, like, episode 6, I think. And there's 8 episodes in the show. And it's just, like, it was kind of obvious, like, so it just kind of felt like not really that much of a big reveal. Part of me did think because it was so obvious they weren't going to do it, but it's like, okay. And, I mean, Jeffrey D. Morgan, I mean, he's great. He's fantastic as well. Also, I mean, when Will Ferrell's in it, just for this brief little moment, I thought it was hilarious. Like, it's such an obvious parody of stuff like those sports drama movies. And, I mean, Will Ferrell is just hilarious. I mean, I just really like Will Ferrell. And he was great here as well. I thought that was just a little fun little moment. And The Deep was also a really big standout here. He was great as well. I mean, he does kind of just feel like a gag character, but he does have quite a bit of depth, and they do have this kind of weird relationship because he's obviously very stupid, and then they do this relationship between him and Sister Sage over on the left here. But, like I said, a lot of this show, I don't know what it was about this season, just kind of felt like, not inconsequential, like the ending very much does set up, like, season 5, which is like, oh, that's huge news. But it just kind of this season just feels kind of off. Like, everything kind of ends up, like, kind of okay. Like, Frenchie and Kamiko get back together, so it's like, what was even the point of that? And, of course, the big reveal is, of course, Homelander is going to be running for president. And after, like, Victoria Newman's death. And it's very... It feels kind of very... I guess I just thought this season was kind of, like, not bad. It was good, but it just kind of predictable, and it didn't really feel like it was. It didn't feel up to standards of the previous seasons, but it was still good. So yeah, this season was still good. This show was still good. But like I said, this is just a show for me that I like, but I don't love, and I think that this season in particular also just reinforces that. It just feels like a lot of it just feels like going for shock value for the sake of shock value. And of course, there is fantastic character work here. There are fantastic characters, but especially like in this, it just feels like a lot of stuff just felt like weird plots to do. Like the whole plot with Huey and Starlight, and it just kind of just felt off. And like when like especially the way I know, and especially just the way Starlight was handled, she just seems so like annoying, and the fact that she doesn't understand like when there's this whole clone subplot, it just feels kind of weird. But overall, this show is good. This season was good, but it's just not as good as the previous seasons, in my opinion.